Hi, Jeff Paya with Farmobile. I am the Director of Customer Support here with the team, and today I'm here with Jason Taji, CEO of Farmobile, and we're going to discuss the Harvest Index for 2020. Well, it's been a year already since we released the beta version of the Harvest Index, and we've gone through a planting season with the index as well too, and we're ready for another harvest season, Jason. So I think it'd be beneficial to kind of talk about kind of the history of where we started with the index last year and kind of go into it, into what we're doing this year with it too.
Sure. So you and I are both from kind of the trading world, right? The grain marketing side of things, and last summer, there was a lot of confusion from the USDA and the replants, and we're at the Pro Farmer Crop Tour, and there was just, it got almost intense. Farmers and industry people were just frustrated in the lack of a better source of data for us to understand what was happening with the crop. And the USDA is the gold standard right now for what we have, but their methods of collection are really, really outdated, and they need to be modernized. And that doesn't mean that they need to rebuild their whole system, but it does mean that they can start to augment their data sets with some other data sets that might be relevant for what they're trying to do. So the thought was here is that we've got customers with hundreds of combines running every day, especially during harvest. I think we get up to 500 combines some days running. And so what if we could collect the data from those and aggregate it on a state level basis just to put out a daily number to our subscribers as to what the yield was and how many acres were harvested that day. And so that was the goal, and this stuff all takes a little bit of time, but last year I think we did a decent job of it. I think we learned a lot of things, and now we've almost doubled our subscriber base this year, so we're going to probably have a lot more machines running at the same time. And it's really, I call it farmer sourcing, but it's like crowdsourcing data, but it's farmer sourcing. It's directly ground truth stuff, and everybody tries to make predictions from satellites, and that's okay, but you really can't tell what a yield is from a satellite. You can tell good parts of the field from bad parts of the field from in-season satellite imagery, but it's been really difficult thus far for any of the AI to teach us what the actual yield is out of that field. And so the only time you really know that is by driving a machine through it and tracking what's happening on that machine. So our goal is that every day we should be able to post a number to our users, let them know on a state-by-state basis how many acres were collected and what the yields were, and that's going to give them just another little nugget of information as they go to play out their marketing plan. It's going to give them a little bit of a heads up as what's happening, and to my knowledge, there's no one that has anything close to this level of ground truth, real-time data to be able to get a little edge in the market, and that's what everybody's looking for.
And I think that's also something where we offered this last year to a small beta group of individuals. They provided a lot of input back to us about, hey, this is great, this is things that you can be doing differently, this is what I appreciate, this is what I am maybe not getting value out of right now. And I think that's helped evolve from the planting side, but then also into this this season as well for harvest. What's new this season? How are we presenting the data, or that our subscribers should be able to see different?
Well, I think you just described Farmobile, right? Like, we had an idea early on of what we thought would be valuable, and 7 years in now, it's just kind of a collection of the feedback we've gotten from users, and we've really focused on being able to provide value to the farmer, because that's where it all starts. If farmers aren't running these devices on their machines, none of the other stuff really comes together and matters. So yeah, last year we had a lot of input around ways that we could get better at describing how meaningful the data was. Like, at first we were just throwing out a yield number, and then we said we want to attach acres. So in TFF, right, typical Farmobile fashion, we quickly were able to get some code up there so that we were able to start to describe acres. And I think in the springtime too, we started off and said, okay, well, if we did it during harvest, the two biggest pieces of USDA data that move the markets are generally, how many acres have been planted, and how many acres have been harvested and what's the yield. And so This spring, we started off by a planting index from some of our customers, and we started by just displaying the acres that were planted, and then they said that would be really cool to see that versus the USDA that gets updated once a week. So then we added another graph there, and so now we've got two things going. So I think we had like 6 or 7 states last year for the planting, or this spring, I guess, for the planting index. And look, these things are only going to become more valuable and more representative of the market as time grows, right? As these things grow. It takes a while for you to be able to create some kind of an index like this. But the unique data sets that we're collecting, the fact that we're doing it directly, there's not really any derived data, makes what we're doing really meaningful and really different than any of the other tours, or prediction methods that you see out there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And even after our survey from our customers from the postseason of understanding, hey, what did you learn? What could we continue to improve upon? I love that we're always going back to our customers who are using the product and asking how can we continue to evolve it. And even this year, I mean, we heard responses back of continued better ways from the springtime of presenting the data agronomically, but then also the machine data that the PUC is also collecting, and is there value in that? And there's been a showcase of value of aggregation of machine data too.
Well, when we talk about data, agriculture, food, the global agriculture, let's just call it the food industry, is massive. We all depend on it. It is a it's the foundation for all of us. And we're sitting here with these farmers who have all this equipment, and if we can aggregate this data, it should be worth more because of the importance of what we do in growing our food, and an accurate prediction of that is a really, really great improvement over the, I'm going to say, outdated survey methods that are generally used today. And if you've got a better source of data that starts to flow to the markets, you reduce the volatility. And as a former trader, I can say that's bad for me, but I can tell you as someone who's buying that crop for milling or for end use, ethanol or for whatever, and for a farmer who is selling that crop, those two sides of the table generally hate the volatility. Right? And so if we can reduce the volatility, then traditional hedging methods, which used to work 20 years ago when I started in the business, start to be relevant again. Right now, a lot of times people will say that traditional hedging doesn't work anymore, and they're kind of, there's a lot of instances where that makes sense because the information flow is so bad. Our information flow is, the USDA does as good as they can, but we can do better. And if we do better, I think it's going to be better for everyone, at least everyone who eats.
Absolutely. And you mentioned who this data is available for, and I think it's always important to let everybody continue to know that this is for active subscribers of Farmobile.
Correct.
It's something that we want to make sure that everybody who's a subscriber has access to it, but then also the entities who are interested in the data as well too. We have a platform with a data store where they could also come to the table and request the data and purchase the data if the grower chooses to sell that data too.
And I think that's really the premise as to how we originally built the data store concept around Farmobile, and that was the original concept that we had here. I think what we didn't understand was how little people outside of agriculture really know about this data, right? What's really interesting to me is that if we can, again, farmer source this data pile, it's going to be extraordinarily valuable for everyone who's trying to market anything, A, to a farmer, or B, people who are trying to understand what's the magic sauce for helping us, create a more environmentally friendly and a more productive food supply. And we talk about the carbon stuff that we're talking about now with these carbon exchanges and all that kind of stuff. I can tell you that these data sets that we're accumulating, we have no idea what the value is for them yet, but I absolutely am certain that this is an appreciating asset. If a farmer is willing to collect it, it's just like a crop, okay? When you grow your crop, right? You take it through the season, you do all these things along the way to protect your yield, and then you harvest your crop and you put it in storage, and you would never give it away, okay? When that truck pulls up to load out of that bin, no one's getting that stuff for free. Right. And I think once we start to treat data like the asset that it is, it's the same thing. You collect the data throughout the year, you put it in storage, and you make sure that when someone comes there, they better have a really good reason for you giving the neighbor a little bit of grain to feed the cattle. Yep. Or there should be monetary value assigned to it. And the cool thing about data is, the corn in the bin I can sell once, and the data in the bin I could sell 4 or 5 times.
Right.
And so I think everyone's farm business could look a little better if they could sell their corn, 3 or 4 times.
Yep. Well, and I think it was even validated again. I had a conversation with a grower where he is further west in the United States, and he was excited about the opportunities that we're presenting today, where he's been a customer for quite a few years, but he's starting to see some of these other opportunities that were been generally in the Midwest that's starting to come out further west, and he was pretty excited. He said, "Hey, I'm super excited about these opportunities that are coming out further west towards where we operate. Our growers, our customers are genuinely interested on and want to see continue to grow and continue to understand how can they benefit from the value and how can they better understand the data." I think that's also something that our customers want to do.
Well, this is coming from, as a trader, I was the one who got to collect all this information, right? Because I would talk to a couple hundred farmers in a day, and you could tell during harvest if people were calling you to check prices, it generally meant they wanted to sell, which means their crop is probably a little bit better than they thought, or they've got a little bit more to sell than they thought. The scary part was when harvest came and no one was calling, right? But me as a market maker at that time, when you have all these people calling you, you're gathering all this information, right? This is why companies like Cargill and Bunge and AD, they have these massive networks of people who are hearing these, the farmers talk all the time, and they're using it to their advantage. Yep. And so, again, this farmer sourcing idea of this data just completely shifts the opportunities. And one of the first things we had to do this last year is we had customers who started tweeting out our index right away, right? And I'm like, no, you don't want to tweet it. This is yours. Like, use this to your advantage. Don't tell the world about this, right? Like this shouldn't be something that's blasted out there everywhere, because this is a really unique, really interesting, and as time goes on, going to be a bigger and bigger, more meaningful part of the, I think, the supply and demand picture. And the other thing is that, everyone's seen the movie Trading Places, right? Like the information that the government puts together is sealed off and it's super secretive, and there's all these checks and balances that go on before those reports get released. And the fact that we're churning these things out every day is just a really, really big advantage. But it will take a little bit of time, and the more people we get on and the more PUCs you have running, the more relevant the data becomes, and that's a pretty exciting opportunity. Fully agree.
It is. Well, that's going to be the 2020 Harvest Index. It's going to be released as the combines continue to get rolling, and I don't know, Jason, if there's anything else that you want to talk about specifically with this index?
I think it's going to be really interesting to watch this year, because we've got corn tasseling in the first week of July in central Minnesota. And we've got corn tasseling, all throughout Kansas and Missouri right now. I think harvest is going to be nationally about 3 weeks this year, because I think everybody's early and everything's happening at the same time. And that's going to put a lot of pressure on our logistics. But it's going to be a really interesting, fall, late summer and fall to watch, because I think this thing is going to come quick, and I think harvest is going to go really fast. And I think there are going to be piles everywhere. And hopefully prices stay all right.
There you go. Absolutely. Well, awesome. Well, Jason, thanks for joining here today and on the Farmobile Talk series. And thank you for everybody. If you have any questions about the Farmobile Index, reach out to us, 844-337-2255 or farmobile.com. Thank you.